All right, I want to teach you just a few moments here on risk. And it's funny that we had the call earlier. William was he's terrified of the future. Just terrified. Terrified about moving across country. Terrified about how do I get there. He's just scared. And again, folks, I'm fighting fear on your behalf. It's why we've got the Sugar Ray Leonard, one of the legendary boxers, my favorite boxer growing up. I've got his boxing gloves on the shelf behind me. There you go. That's why they're there. It's not a random piece of sports memorabilia. I'm fighting fear and doubt and pride on your behalf because I know what it's like to fight those enemies. They never go away. But I do love slugging them right in the nose on your behalf. Now, so I want to talk about fear as it relates to risk. All right? There's a question you should ask every time somebody presents risk to you. And it's a simple question. We'll get to that in just a moment. But let's first set the human condition for a moment. What happens, Joe? I'm going to put Joe on the spot. What happens, Joe, the producer, when you are presented with risk? In other words, any part of your life and somebody that you're engaging with says, and you're thinking about doing something, and no matter what it is, and then the person goes, well, Joe, there's some risk involved. Tell me what happens to you.
Well, you start thinking about how much risk do you have to,
Now, what does it do to you initially, though? You hear risk, and what do?
I pull back.
There it is. Thank you, Joe. All right, Joe represents every human being. That's not a Joe issue. That is a human issue. So, Joe, you nailed it. As soon as somebody goes, well, I need to tell you about the risk, what do? We pull back. We go, huh? Immediately. And then Joe asks questions. Well, tell me more, right? Sometimes people don't do that. Sometimes people go, what? I'm sorry. What'd you say? Did you say the word risk? Oh boy. I'm not interested. Going to go ahead and slowly back out of the room. I'm gone. This is the truth. Now, some of you, this hits a little bit closer to home than others. You know it's true. You hear risk and you immediately go, and fear takes over. Now, you may eventually work your way into it, but for those of you who really struggle when you hear the word risk and then you just immediately shut down and you pull back like Joe did, here's what I want you to ask. Simple little question. We're going to throw it on the screen. This is the question you ask when assessing risk. You say, really? How risky is it? You're not questioning that it's risky, but you are saying, how risky? I want to know. All right, so if I go whitewater rafting, they go, now listen, folks, you got to wear the helmet, you got to wear the elbow pads, the knee pads, whatever they put on you in those things. And they say there's a risk that you fall out of the boat and hit a rock. I want to go, how risky is that? Is it every boat down loses 3 people? Are there a lot of rocks throughout the whole thing? Like, what are the chances that that's going to happen? Or whatever the thing is. So you hear, well, there's a risk in starting a business. Okay, how risky is it? Let's dive in. How much money do I have to launch this business? Okay, I'll get that number. And what do we know about the success metrics? What has to happen for me to turn a profit within whatever it is? Just investigate it. Dive into it and say, how risky is this? Is this high risk? Is it medium risk? Is it low risk? That's what I'm driving at. But don't do what most of us do sometimes. Well, not sometimes. I think every time we hear risk, we immediately go, oh. And it's okay to do that if you snap back into it. And that's what I'm trying to get you to do. Snap right back in and go, okay, all right. How risky is it? And do the investigative work to figure out, is it high risk, medium risk, or low risk? Because here's the deal. If it's medium risk to low risk and you plan for that risk to happen, so let's just say you go, I could lose this money. Well, save up for it, plan on it, and say, I want to start this business, but there is a chance that I will lose the investment. How big of a risk? Well, if it's halfway, medium, so it's 50-50, that's what I'm doing here in my little homespun illustration, or it's very low risk, low chance, then I'm going to plan for it. So that if it happens, it's okay. There's no destruction. Am I going to be thrilled that I lost it? No. But I did plan for the eventuality or the possibility of it, rather. I planned for the possibility. That's what I mean. Assess the risk. How risky is it? And then adjust your mindset and adjust your actions so that you step into the risk. And if the worst thing happens, it's not the end of the world. It's not even the end of the day. And that will really help a lot of you who are not risk friendly. You're straight up risk averse. I hear risk. Nope, I'm walking the other way, Ken. I get it. Okay, everybody has different levels of risk. But regardless, that little trick there of just truly leaning into it and walking it out and go, what would have to be true for me to stay afloat and not reach destruction if the risk actually came to reality? It's as simple. And when you do that, it's not so scary.